Hey guys, Desolator Magic here, and I'm here to answer the question on everybody's mind. With Eternal Masters being really cheap this time around, is it worth it to buy it at its current price and sit on it as an investment so that it'll be worth more money in the pretty near future? Lots of people ask me that, and the correct answer is, how the hell should I know? When was the last time I made a video that was vaguely MTG Finance related? I don't know anything about long-term investments. My long-term investments are when I hold a card longer than a week. But I'm going to give my insights on this anyway. Now, any box, especially a limited print run, although they clearly lied about this being a limited print run because, they printed it again, or didn't. You guys know how that went. But any limited print run is going to be worth more money if you hold it long enough. It's just, will it even keep up with inflation, let alone compared to like a traditional investment, let alone compared to other Magic products? Just in general, just looking at the set saying it's a limited print run and it's from the most expensive format of Magic, I think it's going to go up at X rate of speed. That's how most people are looking at it, but you have to go deeper. What is the actual supply? What is actually happening? The fact that boxes were going for like $270 on eBay or something like that, or like $300, I think at one point, right after it was released, that's crazy. Nobody got the amount that they wanted from what I heard. Like all the stores were like, oh, we're only getting blah. And everybody was sold out. People are putting all these limits on how many you can order. And then they were just gone. So the price was above MSRP, but then it just disappeared. Now, some people still had some, but they were selling it at a high price because they knew the volume that was for sale. So there just wasn't enough Eternal Masters to go around. But now they announce, hey, we're running off a really small second run. And nobody really knows how big it was or if it even was a second run or if it was just warehoused. Kind of irrelevant, actually. I mean, I'd love to know if Wizards lied or not, but other than that, Anyway, basically, this time around, it's $170 a box on eBay or something like that? Okay, I actually just checked, and this, it fluctuates, so checking is pointless, but right now, this second, $174.99 free shipping. That is a little bit different than $270. Now, I'm not sure what it settled at. I'm not even sure what Eternal Masters was worth like a month and a half to 2 months ago. I didn't follow it and didn't really care. I would assume it was probably at or above $240 though. So what happened between the end of most people selling Eternal Masters and the beginning of this set? Nothing. Like the demand and the supply stayed the same pretty much. So just simply the announcement of the second run or the second availability of Eternal Masters dropped the price by basically close to 100. Like I said, I don't know what it really ended at. I would assume some kind of price gouge level, but it dropped. It wasn't 175, 2 months ago. So I was going to look further into this, like, what's the attendance of the last Eternal format tournament and what's the future of it, which, they're being cut, by the way. But I don't need to even go that far. This is Eternal. They've got cards that have never been printed before, in that, like, they've never been printed as foil and you could pull one as a foil. And yeah, Vintage and Legacy players want that, because they spent enough money on their deck. Of course, they want a brand new, pack fresh foil version of something for more money than, it would be normally worth. Honestly, none of them were that bad if you look up, the cost of like Lotuses and stuff. If somebody's going to drop like $1,000 on even, I don't know, what's $1,000? I don't know, like one of the lesser Power 9s, I think those are like $1,000 or something. If they're going to drop $1,000 on a card, they're going to drop $50 on a foil rare. Come on. So there's some value there. There's a market there. It's a little narrow because, basically nobody plays Vintage and Legacy. And yes, I'm using that as a relative term relative to the number of Standard, Modern, and Commander players and all the other formats added together. I would say that Eternal is probably the smallest. Maybe like Prismatic is the smallest, or Blitzkrieg or whatever, but, basically nobody has like 40, 50 grand laying around to build a really high-end deck. Some people are cashing out their decks and they're just leaving and nobody's starting to play it. Not unless they won the damn Powerball or something. So there are people draining away from it, but that isn't even that important because you could say 5-10 years in the future, there will be nobody left who wants these cards. And I don't mean literally nobody, just like in 90 days on eBay, 0 purchases. That's my idea of nobody because it's pretty much synonymous with actual nobody. If there are actually people who want my cards, but they're not actually buying them from me, then guess what? They might as well actually not exist. So let's sweep all that negativity away, because honestly, that is a red flag. Just look at the box price. All Wizards did was say, we're upping the supply. Boom, investors won't touch it, because investors paid, $240, $250 a box in theory. I mean, if they're a non-WPN location, which, like, who's an investor and runs a local store? That's, there is some people, but come on, that's not the most common thing in the world. So if they got to buy them secondhand, they might be buddies with 10 different distributors or whatever. They ain't getting nothing if they're not a WPN store. They got to buy them retail, basically. And I don't care who you're friends with and who owns what store. They ain't going to give you a box for like $170. That ain't going to happen. Pretty much no store got the amount that they actually wanted. So the first time around, a couple investors are like, okay, I'm going to buy, 24 boxes or whatever. What is that? 4 cases. Oh, that's right. These came in cases of 2. 12 cases of 2. Fun fact in case you didn't know that, by the way. And they spent $250 a piece, we'll say. I mean, maybe they were, they had some context. Some were paid, we'll just say $225 a piece. That would be a little bit more polite. Let's see, 225 times 24, $5,400. That's, no joke to sit on for a couple of years. It's not a huge amount, but, to me it would be. So this time around, all the investors are like, oh my God, I paid like at or near or above MSRP for my big investment. And this was the big one. I was going to sit on it and it was just going to skyrocket because the whole world is wiped out like a week later, which is realistic. So you don't have to wait 5 years for the supply to dry up. It's gone. It is already gone. That's why they paid so much money to get their hands on what they wanted. So just the simple notion that more of them are coming out, all the investors said, screw it. I already got burned the first time. I'm not getting burned the second time. So even at, $170, $175, nobody's touching it. So the $175, I would assume 95, if not more, % of the investors are gone. They're not touching it now. They're mad. They don't even know what the supply is. It's out of control. Who knows what Wizards is doing? Who knows how many are getting printed? Oh my gosh, bad investment. Jump ship. So they're all gone. What happens? Only the people who actually play Eternal or want to draft Eternal Masters or are a super, super small time, like 1-2 box at a time level investor, those are the people left setting the price. They're setting the level of demand. Yes, I know in all my videos I oversimplify supply and demand, but I'm not going to explain it every time. So this is a slight problem. That means that the number one customer the first time around setting the price was investors, and then as soon as you remove them, a box is worth $170 instead of $270. Now, 5 years in the future, you're not going to sell a box to an investor. Investors don't buy high and then sell slightly higher. They buy low and then sell high. So eliminating the investors, if it dropped the price $100, you are never going to see a profit on Eternal Masters. I mean, you could get the it's 5 years old and out of print premium 5 years from now, but it ain't going to be $1,000 box. I mean, nowhere even near that. All things being equal, if everything goes exactly as predictable, I just don't see these boxes even going above like 260 within 2 or 3 years. 5-10 years out, maybe 300. I mean, I wouldn't be that surprised if it shot to like 400 in absolute factory sealed, out of print, kind of rare set. But it's usually the cards in it that are the value. I mean, what's a sealed box of Homeland's worth? I actually got really curious. I looked it up. $167 approximately. There's a little shipping on top of that, but Homeland's is freaking ancient. And it only shot up to, after shipping, 180, something like that, 190. That is just like the I'm old premium price, times what, like 20 years or something like that? 21 actually, if I'm not mistaken, 21 and a half even. You know why it's not $1,000 a box or $500 a box? Because there's nothing valuable in it. I guess people will be willing to pay like $190 to draft it as a joke because it's funny and their friends are all pitching in $10. Okay, actually they'd have to pitch in a lot more than that if they're drafting it. Now, I would not recommend buying this on eBay. This seems a little high to me, but guess what the price of one sealed booster box of Urza's Saga is? If you guessed $1,350, ding, 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 you win. I think you could get it a hair cheaper than that. Urza's Saga was from 1998, and Homeland's, I believe, was 95. Guess why it's worth more? Because a buttload of the cards are worth a lot. So what's in the set and the individual singles value, it just about is the only factor that sets the price. I mean, age, okay, it's a slight modifier, but the number one thing is what's in there. By the way, somebody has a Japanese Urza Saga box for 900 flat? Holy crap. So fast forward 5, 10, even 20 years in the future, which I guarantee Wizards will have killed Magic by then because they're a bunch of idiots. Oh wait, no, some of the idiots running the company would have retired by then. Oh good, the game just has to outlive the people trying to freaking sink it. That's promising. Anyway, the price of the singles is going to set the price of the box. I mean, this is not a compounding interest loan or note or investment or anything like that. You can't just say every year it's going to go up 5% like clockwork. No, it's based almost exclusively off of the singles price. So should you invest in it even at the low price of 170? I mean, 5 years from now, is it going to be 150? I don't think so, but it might still be like 180. I mean, it could happen. It's unrealistic, but it could happen. So, I mean, will you actually lose your money? If you had to buy it on credit, yes. With inflation, yes. Otherwise, no, probably not. I mean, it's not a losing investment like just buying individual singles, which could go down 50%. But the number one deciding factor is who's the market, and who's the market indicates what's the singles price. With Eternal getting smaller and smaller and smaller every day, that is extremely bad. The fact that the price was inflated over $100 because of investors, you take them out as buyers and oh my God, it just dropped $100. And then you look at the singles that are in there. Do they have another use? Are they legal in, oh God, Frontier? No, they're not. Are most of them even legal in Modern? No, there's practically zero Modern staples in it. And you know they did that on purpose. They shouldn't have. They should have thrown in, a ton of Modern cards. Because they were really skimpy on what they printed for actual Eternal decks that people actually play. I mean, a lot of the commons and uncommons were a joke, and just a good portion of the rares and mythics, well, not really the mythics, but the rares were not cards that people actually play in decks. I mean, Force of Will, boom, you've got a staple, there you go. But if they couldn't touch the reserve list, they should have touched literally everything else that people play. But they touched nothing, they didn't even scratch the surface. So the rest of the cards, are they good in Commander? Absolutely. I mean, they had some killer Commander cards in there. I would bet that the most people buying the singles are actually Commander players instead of Eternal. That's pretty realistic to, think that. Maybe some people had some beat up 20-year-old cards with bent corners and stuff that are barely legal in a tournament, so they picked up a $5 or $10 replacement pack fresh. Okay, but I mean, do you guys even know any Vintage and Legacy players that don't use proxies? I know of like 3. Oh, and spoiler alert, I know a lot of people. So yes, Commander's going through the roof on popularity. I don't think the popularity is going down. I think it's currently going up. So people could be picking these up. I mean, at a certain point, the availability of certain cards is going to be just the newer prints. I mean, you just won't be able to find certain older cards. So with the only people realistically buying it in a future scenario being Commander players, and that's it, because Eternal, you might as well just write them off. They all have their decks already, and nobody's, a new Eternal player. That's thin. That is really damn thin. If they release Commander 2021 edition, and the new Commanders don't work so well with what just coincidentally happens to have been in Eternal Masters, the singles aren't going to go up at all. But if there's a Commander that works perfectly with a certain rare or mythic in Eternal Masters, it could go from a $10 card to a $50 card. And that would alone push up the price of a box. I mean, this wasn't that big of a print run. Like individual total count of singles. Unique cards, I should say. So it's possible, but there's only one force driving it. I mean, you'd be so much better off sitting on Modern Masters 2017, and I say that without knowing a single card in it. That's how confident I am that Eternal Masters is not a very good investment in general. I wouldn't say it's a terrible investment. I would say it's still above sitting on a box of Born of the Gods. Hindsight is 2020. So I think it might outperform a standard box. But then again, even that's not a sure thing. They will print standard booster boxes until you stop buying them, basically. So you sit on one of those, maybe one of the cards will become popular in Commander, or Vintage and Legacy. I mean, that's a stretch, but it's possible. Or Modern. So you've got all this potential for some cards to spike up through the roof, and it only takes a handful of them to make the box worth an extra $50 or $100. So that's more potential for it to go up. But if there's really no interest in Born of the Gods 5 years from now, you might even have to sell it at a loss or something. But the typical cost is $78 to $86 a booster box. So I thought of a great example. What's a sealed booster box of Gatecrash going for? Oh yes, I know you're all interested in this. $79.49 free shipping. Okay, that is a loss no matter what they paid for it at the distributor, which I think it might have been a hair lower back then. Maybe not though. That's around when I started playing, and I don't remember what the MSRP was. I don't think it necessarily changed. So that's like $1.50 above distributor cost if you have a really good distributor. So they're basically losing money on them because nobody wants them. It's standard, it's crap, none of the cards are in modern. Why would anybody even buy it? So if there's nothing noteworthy about the set, standard is a pretty bad box to sit on because you can sell it for probably honestly a couple dollars less than you could get for it when it's actually legal. So they're likely to go down. I don't think Eternal Masters is necessarily going to go down. But what if the singles are just worth nothing or there's no demand? I mean, it might drop to $130 a box. It is possible. I mean, if there's literally no demand for something, I just can't imagine what that would do to the price. Nothing good. Now, there's one more factor to keep in mind. If you're going to sit on something for the long term, because you've got some, liquid cash laying around, as in not credit, because if you're paying interest on it every year, you're going to lose no matter what. Every single standard set from now on is going to have Masterpiece cards. This time around, they were called Inventions. The time before this, they were called Expeditions. But the concept of them as a whole, that type of card, is classified as a masterpiece, and they said every single standard box is going to have masterpieces, aka the lottery winners, the jackpot cards. Now, some of them comically are even falling to like $20. Like, I'd buy one and put it in my commander deck for $20 just because the artwork looks cooler. But if they start printing like fetch lands, mana vaults, stuff like that, that's just nuts, as the masterpiece cards, which I think they will. That ups the gambler's premium on any future box, because somebody's saying, oh, there's nothing really good in, I'll say, Conquest of Power, because that's the furthest out set I know of, if that's even a real name. But, 5 fetch lands as masterpieces. Whoa. And that's just an example. I'm not saying they're going to do that. They might. Who knows? I actually think there will probably be masterpiece fetches in the very next set. So somebody knows they could pull like a $200 or $300 card out of that one box. Just the knowledge that that's possible, and it's about a 1 in 4 shot. That's pretty reasonable, of pulling any masterpiece in general. That's going to up the long-term investability, the future price. Depending upon how you look at it, Eternal Masters was the last set to not have masterpieces in it. Because, technically it came out after Conspiracy because it just came out again. So it depends how you look at it. But being the very last box without an Ultra Gambler's Premium with an Ultra Rare, that's not good. And that was really the last thing I wanted to hit on because it's the last important point. So in general, I think it's a bad investment. And, the fact that you could from somewhere probably get booster boxes for like 80 flat if you know the right people, it might be more advantageous to just sit on one case of every standard set. I mean, you throw your net out every which way, you're going to catch a fish eventually. And even Gatecrash, you could still get 79 out of it, allegedly. Not sure what the sales volume in history is on that, so maybe not, but that's at least what it's listed at right now. So I don't think it's a worse investment, but there's, every reason I just named to not invest in it. To say, oh boy, in 5 years it'll be $500 a box, no, that's unrealistic and stupid. If that happens, I wouldn't be that surprised, but everything points to that not being the case. So finally, hopefully that answers at least my opinion on if people should snap up Eternal Masters right now because, the price crept up $5 more. So, you're running out of time if you wanted to jump on it, but I just recommend that people do not do that. What do I recommend you invest in right now? Because I can't leave it hanging like that. All I'm going to say is, have you seen the price of silver lately? Look up a 1-year graph on that. You should probably buy some silver. I'm not a financial advisor. I think I have to legally say that now. This is also not a sponsored video. So hopefully that helps you guys out, and I will see you guys next video.